Has the Church of England turned away from God's ideal of what family should be and is now listening to the world? Let's have a look. Hi, my name's Dan. I'm a vicar in the Church of England, and the Church of England has just produced a report, a huge report, 238 pages long, including all the pages, talk about what family is. There's a 48-page summary. If you would like to look at those, the links are below. So what do they tell us about family? So what would we expect in the Church of England? Would we expect that they would say, this is the ideal, this is God's ideal from the scriptures, that it's husband and wife and children, and that makes up the ideal? But we recognize that in the world it's a broken place, and families come in different shapes and sizes, as we perhaps could say, and we recognize that. No, of course, we're the Church of England, and so the Church of England leads with something else. And I'm going to get into a couple of reports. The first one is from Henry Benson of the Marriage Foundation, where he responds to a section of this report where it concentrates on marriages. And he says, the authors take the view that we should affirm the full diversity of families and that there is no one best method of doing family. So this is going against what I've just said. You would expect any church, any denomination to say father, mother, children. That's the ideal. But we do recognise, and we have to recognise as Christians, that there are many different families now in different scenarios because of different circumstances and different choices and different lifestyle choices. And how do we respond to that when they come to us in church? But this report, as Henry says, they take the view that we should affirm the full diversity of families and that there is no one best method of doing family. Now, there's a challenge. We can't affirm what we don't believe, and I'll get into that later by a very good response. But we can't say there is no one best method for doing family, because as Christians, our worldview tells us that there is one best method for doing that. And let's start. I don't know where they started, but let's start. I'm not a scholar, I'm just a local vicar, but let me put forward my view based on the Bible. So let's look at chapter 2 in Genesis to help us with this. The first verse is 18, where it says, "Then the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." And that helper was, of course, a woman taken from man. Verse 24 goes on as we look into marriage. "Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." So God made man and woman like opposite, as it says in the English translation. I think abder kenesco, something like that. I'm destroying it off the top of my head. And when marriage comes, that it's man and woman. That's the definition of marriage. So we go on then to Matthew 19, where Jesus is answering a question about divorce, where he references marriage again. He answered, "Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and then the two should become one flesh," posing that as a question. But referencing those two verses from Genesis 2 there, that he created them from the beginning, male and female, where God makes Eve for Adam, and then goes on to define the marriage is between a man and a woman. I also just want to jump into the marriage ceremony that we do in the Church of England from the Common Worship text, where we say to the congregation and to the couple at the beginning, when we're defining what Christian marriage is, we say the gift of marriage brings husband and wife together in the delight and tenderness of sexual union and joyful commitment to the end of their lives. It is given as the foundation of family life, in which children are born and nurtured, and in which each member of the family, in good times and in bad, may find strength, companionship and comfort, and will grow to maturity in love. So marriage is given for that. That's a definition of marriage there when we talk about family. So we got just snippets from the Bible. We got a part that we read out publicly stating what Christian marriage is in a marriage ceremony. So I can't understand why we go back, as Henry says, and says that there is no ideal for marriage, where we do state what an ideal for marriage is in a marriage ceremony. So Henry goes on to say, they take us through their version of social history of marriage, linking marriage to money and men, claiming that it was only ever idolised by the Victorians, and stating that marriage has never represented anything of an ideal. After all, families have always come in different shapes and sizes. There was even cohabitation in the Bible, they note. It took post-war culture and the sexual revolution finally to liberate women from the patriarchy of marriage, we are told. So now we should accept this diversity, they argue, love our neighbour and get over ourselves. It's an appealing and carefully argued narrative. The hope is that we love you, whoever you are. We love all kinds of love and relationships because love is what matters. And he goes on to say, you just know that there is a but coming, and it's a big one. Of course, I agree that we should love our neighbours regardless, but that does not mean we are supposed to affirm behaviours that might not be in our best interests. And this is what I'm saying, as Christians, there is an ideal which God sets out in the Bible. But we understand that in the world as a broken place, and people come to faith at different stages in their lives. And as people come to faith, they can come to church. And how do we engage and accept them and speak to them? And it's something that we have to learn as Christians, something that probably we haven't done that well, and something that we need to acknowledge that we are living in two different worlds, a Christian world and a secular world, and those worlds can come together. When they come together, especially today where like I said, not just families, but a lot of other things are different, we have to sympathetically and carefully help people to understand what the Christian worldview is. And now, if you have two gay men coming in with children and saying, there's something happening in their life, they think about coming to faith and want to speak about that. There's a clash of two worlds coming here, but there's an opportunity to speak about the good news of Jesus Christ. But there's also the standard which God calls us to live. So it is very complex in the world that we live. So we can't say, as this report saying, we affirm the full diversity, because we can't. But we have to clearly state that in the Bible, God says that there is one way that families should be, but we recognise in the world that there are obviously different family units nowadays. So Henry goes on to state that they missed four things they missed in the report. First, he says the authors failed to acknowledge that until the 1960s, marriage has always been linked to childbirth. Second, the authors overlooked the social function of marriage and why states and societies throughout their history have regulated marriage in one form or the other. Third, the authors ignore the psychology of marriage and how it either builds or enhances commitment. And fourth, there's pressure, little recognition that marriage might be associated with more positive family outcomes. And there are a lot of studies out there about marriage and how people, children perform. Obviously, we know that when children are in families with two parents, and even, to be honest, you have to be honest about this, looking at the studies, even if it's two women or two men, children are more secure and they do perform better than being in single parent families. Now, we also recognise that those single parent families will be single parent for a variety of reasons. I became a single parent family when I was a child, so my mum, I'll talk about when my dad died, and that had a devastating effect on my life, not having a father figure there to guide me through some really formative years of my life. So personally, I know that as well. So we also have to remember that actually marriage is something bigger than the couple. It's there for society, and we say again in the marriage ceremony, marriage is a sign of unity and loyalty which all should uphold and honour. It enriches society and strengthens community. That when we have a good marriage and a good family as well, and it blesses our local community, it blesses those around us, it becomes actually bigger. And then people participate in our marriage as well, because we are a family unit. So here I'm speaking about marriage, but also in that I'm speaking about family as well, and how we can bless our local society by that, but also be blessed by it. But in this report, some of the recommendations they say, the first one is strong and stable families and households in all their diversity are the foundation of our society, are central importance to the individual well-being of children, young people and adults. Again, you've got to remember this report's being written by the Church of England. So when we talk about the foundation of our society and in all its diversity, it's going back to saying that there is no ideal. From a Christian perspective, if they're putting this forward as their first proposal, a recognising to say that in all the diversity, whatever that might be, is the foundation of society. It takes away our Christian values, our Christian ethos, and it also takes away what the Bible and God is saying as well. So they really have abandoned what a Christian family is, that nuclear family, as some people say. But then it goes on even probably more controversially to speak about singleness. Now, we do recognise that singleness, like I said, my father died, and so my mum was single, and we weren't Christian. I wasn't Christian at that point. My family weren't Christian. But how do we as a church approach singleness? This is where we have to go to Paul in 1 Corinthians 7. And he says, now concerning the matters about which you wrote, it's good for a man not to have sexual relations with a woman, so that we don't have sex outside marriage. But because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman her own husband. That because if you're going to do it, get married, and that's where sexual relations are. But what does the report say about singleness? It says, being single does not restrict anyone's access to being loved and nurtured, which is true. However, nor does singleness imply celibacy. So straight away go against what Paul is saying. The choice to remain single does not deny the enjoyment of a sexual relationship. So if you're single, it's not about if you can't control those desires, get married, was what Paul's saying. They're saying, well, no, if you can't control those desires, just go have fun. But it might indicate a wish to avoid being committed in a permanent couple relationship, preferring the freedom which staying single can offer. So does that mean you can go off and do what you want, or does that mean what they're trying to say is people will cohabit and not get married? It can mean both, but marriage is the ideal. It goes back to that marriage is the ideal from a Christian point of view. In the world where it's not Christian, it's very different, and there's different rules. But God calls us to a different standard, to live in a different standard. So how can a church and these people say the choice to remain single does not deny the enjoyment of a sexual relationship? The enjoyment is actually saying doing it, but it might indicate a wish to avoid. They say avoid being committed in permanent relationship, and all the great things that singleness can offer. So is now saying something that's contrary. Well, it's all contrary to the Bible anyway. But this is different, because there's other consequences of being single and having sex outside of marriage. What happens if someone's having sex and either the woman or a woman gets pregnant, even if that's a woman that's single, or it's the man who gets a woman pregnant? What happens outside? This is why sex happens inside marriage. If someone gets pregnant inside marriage, you just deal with it, but you're in that. So let's go for focus on the family. Well, but focus for the family. Answer this question really, really well. It says, where in the Bible does focus on the family gets definition of family, marriage and family? And it's written by a person who says they're a dedicated Christian, but they're homosexual. And as far as they're concerned, we're as much a family as a heterosexual couple with 2.5 kids, and going on that the material is harmful. and hurtful to him. So they respond so well, and this is what you would expect the report from the Church of England and the archbishops to come and say, but they say it. Before taking a look at the biblical understanding of marriage, we have to say that you seriously misunderstood our perspective. We're not interested in marginalising anyone. We have no reason to doubt that you and your partner are decent, intelligent, upstanding, law-abiding individuals. And this is something that the church needs to understand as well in when we're dealing with people coming in. Yes, we believe that what the Bible has to say about homosexual behaviour, but that doesn't mean that we can't accept you and your partner as individuals and acknowledge your positive contributions to the community. What we cannot do is call your relationship a marriage or a family. Why not? Because in our view, marriage is about more than just love, support and commitment. It is specifically about love, support and commitment between one man and one woman. In other words, marriage is heterosexual by definition. Marriage is an unreserved commitment of two persons to one another in a process of becoming one flesh. In the biblical view, this includes the melding together of the masculine and feminine principles which God has built into the human race by making us male and female. We base this definition on the words of Jesus himself. From the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this cause, a man shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. That's quoted from Mark as well as Genesis. Our definition of family rises out of our definition of marriage. It implies in this biblical teaching concerning the maleness and femaleness of humanity. It flows from Scripture's assertion that God created one man and one woman, brought them together and commanded them to be fruitful and multiply. In other words, we believe that the pattern of the family continued existence is contained in the Bible's accounts of its origins. Man and woman, in their respective roles as mother and father, form the nucleus around which the family unit revolves. This means that a family is a group of individuals who are related to one another organically by marriage, birth, or adoption. It is not just a collection of people who make a decision to live together on the basis of common goals and interests or mutual affection. Now, you can go read the report and or the summary. You can look at the summary. But I would say what Focus on the Family have done is basically taken the 238-page report and just said, well, this is it. This is what they needed. And in there they have recognition of what family is, but there are other things going on as well. It is it's something that you would expect to be in the report, but isn't. So what do you think? Have the Church of England got it right in their report, or have the Focus on the Family just absolutely just nailed it? I would say that the Focus on the Family have absolutely nailed it. Put your comments below. Subscribe to the channel. It's really helping get these messages out there and further afield. Like the video as well, because it really does help the YouTube algorithm, that many more faithful Christians may see these videos and go deeper in their faith, as we are challenged by, I would say, not just by the world, but by the church as well.